Hi, my name is Minda Hartz, and I'm the founder of the Memo. Welcome to Thursday night after 6. We have some beautiful women on your screen who, in just a little bit, I'll kind of get out of the way and we'll get to working mamas. But for those who have not been to a Memo event, welcome. For those who have been here before, hey girl, hey, we're happy that you're here. And if you can see us, that's a great thing. If you can hear us, that's an even better thing if you're watching us live. So if you're having any issues, just type in the chat function for me and we can make sure that all is well. For those listening in on the line, we'll make it as interactive as we possibly can for you. And then for our members that'll watch this after the fact, if you have any questions that we didn't get to, you can shoot us an email, or at the end, I'll let our guests tell you how to find them. And if you have a specific question, you can reach out to them there. So it's been a crazy week. I don't know about you, but I'm very happy just to take a break off of social media, have a good conversation, and get my mind back right. So welcome, ladies. How are you?
Wonderful.
Good.
Good, good. Well, today you're in the right place. We are talking about working mamas. I am not a official mother to a human per se, but I do have a dog named Boston. And for anybody who knows me, you can't tell me any different that he's not my son and that he's not human. So, but for those of us who are not mothers who are watching it, but you're thinking about it, contemplating, you might even be thinking about freezing your eggs, whatever that may look like for you, we're going to get into it, the highs and the lows and all that great stuff. So before we get started, let's have each of you introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Thaisa Jones. I am a digital professional for the state of Pennsylvania, but I also manage a brand that I started about 3 years ago called Stats and Stilettos. I also co-host a podcast called The Initiative, and I'm also working on a inspirational line of children's clothes. I've been married for 5 years, and I have a son who will be 2 in October. So I stay pretty busy.
Okay, hi guys. My name is Nicole, and I am a mother of 17-month-old baby Phoenix. I recently started my company about 2 years ago called Tirado Tech, and so I birthed my baby and my business in tandem after leaving the corporate sector. So after I graduated from college, I joined a nonprofit and realized that my salary was less than my student loans. So I had to make that transition real quick. And so I went into the largest consumer packaged goods company in the tobacco sector, and I managed about a $10 million territory, which was great. But like many things, I just couldn't agree with it morally. And so I moved into the tech space after that and worked for Rackspace, which was an amazing company. I worked for them in San Antonio and then in London and in Hong Kong and then back home in New York. And then I was, walked away from there, and it was just really hard because I was pregnant, and it's difficult to try to find a job when you're pregnant. So that was a really difficult transition, but it was a blessing in disguise because then I birthed my company. And so I'm really excited to speak to you guys. I'm going to be raw and unfiltered and hope that Delores, myself, and Thaisa can uplift you and just learn from you.
Perfect. Well, I'm Delores Brown. I am the co-founder of Agbara Life. We're a wearable tech company it's a benefits corporation. We create high-end wearable tech. I'm also a project manager, and I started off as a chemist at the U of I and moved into international fashion consulting. I was married and lived overseas in about 7 different countries. And once we came back to the States, that's where I started my first company. And then when we moved back to the States, I realized that the Midwest just wasn't for me. And I came to San Francisco for Tech Fashion Week and decided that this is where I needed to be. And about 4 months later, packed up, sold all my furniture, packed my girls, and came out here. That's when we started Agbara. Right now, I'm just kind of in the middle ground. I'm no longer working full time, but I was working full time as well as co-founding and being the creative director for this wearable tech line. So kind of all over the place. Oh, sorry. I have 2 little girls. One is about to turn 7 and one is 4. And they come to I bring them to all my tech conferences. I bring them to virtually everything that I can. I try to make every space welcome, whether the company realizes they're not upfront.
I love it. We have to shape the rooms we enter. So
Yes.
if they're not ready for it, we bring them there. If I could bring Boston everywhere, I probably would too. But curious, there's a lot of talk about work-life balance. And when I say that phrase to you guys, what does that mean to you? Does it exist? Is it a myth? Thaisa?
I feel like, for me personally, I feel like work-life balance, to me, like when a company says that they value work-life balance, I feel like it's a PC thing to say. I think that, it looks really good on their website and it sounds really good when you're interviewing for a job until you actually have to like tap into it, until you actually have to like have a life outside of work. Depending on where you are in your career, like sometimes employers just really aren't that understanding, that, like if you're looking at it from like a work life balance and you look at it like 50-50, like that can't exist. And like in my world, that can't exist. Like I come to work and I do what I'm supposed to do. When I'm here, I put my head down, I dig my heels in, and I just pump workout because I know I have to leave at a certain time. Like I have to pick my son up from daycare. And once I'm home, then I'm a wife, I'm a maid, I'm a cook, I'm a mother. Like, so it's really just a juggling act. And you just have to, sometimes you just have to put one ball down. Like, I'm just gonna let the house be a mess today because I can't get to it. Like, that's my work-life balance. Like, can I hire somebody to clean my house? Because I can't balance that right now. But in order for me to like keep moving, I have to like prioritize. And sometimes there's 5 balls in the air and sometimes there's 3. Like that's my work-life balance. I haven't professionally, my manager now is very understanding, but even still sometimes like I'm still hesitant sometimes to be like, my son's sick, gotta go. Like that's kind of how I look at it.
Cool. So I think, you know, I agree with Thaisa. I think when you have a very understanding boss, it helps. So, I've never had a child and been in the corporate sector. So when I have Phoenix, I already have my own company. And so I have, the luxury, which is really more of like a ball and chain of creating my own schedule. We were talking earlier, I think before you guys joined in on the chat that, remember those days where after 5 o'clock, it was like your brain could just turn off and you didn't have to think about work. And so, here we are 8 o'clock, and as much as I love chatting with you women, of course, this is also work. I had to get a babysitter, drive my daughter to where she needs to be so she's not screaming and wailing in the background and you guys can hear me. And so, work-life balance for me is just picking my battles. And so, I am very strict about my self-care. And so, 3 things that are non-negotiables are my massages, my facials, and my me time, which is like time in the morning. So I have that time in the morning where, I set Phoenix up with breakfast and I just go to the balcony and do my thing. And so that gives me kind of the strength that I need to power through whatever malarkey is going to come at me throughout the day. So I don't really see work-life balance as, having strict hours because I have the luxury of working when I need to. But it's more of just picking and choosing the times that are just for me, and then all the other times are for, responding to email and getting through certain things. But I think I'm just very regimented in terms of when I do certain things and when I tend to Phoenix. And it's really, really hard though. It's really hard to not feel overwhelmed, and I think that it's a constant daily battle, which is why I pick my battles wisely, because it's not something that you figure out. I think it's something that you power through every day.
Yeah, that's huge about picking your battles. My work-life balance, I think that's such a crazy term because my life and work all intertwined. Even with our wearable tech line, I made sure the girls were involved with the design of the bags and everything that we did because there is no separation. I can't separate what I'm doing from, let me find a better way to put this. My girls are a huge part of me. I'm a single mother now. They're with me all the time. So if I tried to separate everything, I think we'd all kind of like go nuts, for lack of better terms. Of course, when I first I was a stay-at-home mom when we lived overseas, and I feel like that was harder for me to balance because there is no, hey, you guys sit here, I have to have a meeting. It's full go. But then when I joined the corporate world, yes, you do take your kids to childcare, and that time going to work is your was my me time. But when you're at work, it's not like you're not thinking about your kids. You don't have to worry about getting that call, or you don't have to worry about, man, they were kind of a little grouchy this morning. Like, what's going on with them? You worry about them. But yeah, I don't really think it's a balance. I think it's just you get it done. It's a part of life. You don't think of it as separate things. Your life is your work, and some people are really good with being able to kind of cut it off at a certain time. I personally, if I'm noticing one of my daughters is having a really tough day, they're going to be laying on my lap while I'm putting a pitch deck together, or someone's sitting on my shoulders while I'm having a call, but you can't see me. It's all combined. It's a madhouse, but it all works out.
I'm really glad you guys gave different lenses of what this work-life balance thing is. I have to agree, Delores. I kind of hate that word, that phrase, work-life balance, because I think it puts people in a box, right? And you might be made to feel like you're not doing the best you can, or not being a good mother, etc., when you're not balancing it all. And so it made me think, I don't know if you guys are aware of this book, but there's a book called Drop the Ball by Tiffany.
Yes.
And so she talks about sometimes you have to drop a ball so that, or pass the ball to someone else so you can get things done.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So that leads me to another question. So you guys talked a little bit about some of the balancing acts that you're doing. What do you think are one of your challenges that you face as a working mom? How are you navigating that?
Okay, I think my biggest challenge, honestly, like with work, is sick days. Because in a 2-month span, my son had an ear infection, he had croup, he had hand, foot, mouth, he had pink eye. And so like I constantly was getting a call from the daycare like, Anderson has 102 temperature. Like, and so I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like there was a running joke at the daycare that I kept telling them, like, does my son stand at the front door and like when the kids come in, does he gauge if they're sick and then lick them? Like, I don't understand why my child is always sick. Like, it was baffling to me. So literally, like, I would be afraid, like, I'm afraid to get sick because I feel like my sick days are for him because I have to stay home. Like, I literally, when he had croup, one day I took him with me because I couldn't explain how to do something over the phone. Like, I'm the only one that does it. So I had to bundle him up and take him to work with me. And I was there for like an hour, but like I had to do that. And when he was better, like I still had to go to work and I was sick. I just told everyone, look, don't come in here. Just don't worry about what I'm doing. Like, work's getting done. If I sound like a seal, it's because I'm sick. Like, just but I can't stay home because I have to keep my sick days for my child that licks everything at daycare. So for me, the biggest challenge is like, is that like, there's just not enough sick days and I get a lot of them, but I feel like I have to hold on to them. Like they're golden.
Yeah, I can relate. I remember when we had sick days. We actually had unlimited sick days, but it was a double-edged sword because then it was like, do I take this sick day? I don't want them to think that I'm, abusing this. So then you don't
Yeah.
take sick days. So then it's like you're at work sick and they're like, take a sick day. So I definitely get where you're coming from. I think for me as a working mom, the balance is giving her equal amounts of contribution, so like financial contribution, like providing for her the tangibles, and then cariño, which in Spanish is like affection. So those are the two C's that are always in my mind, like, am I contributing enough? Am I giving her enough cariño? Because similar to Delores, I'm her sole provider for everything. So I have to figure out, like, is what I'm doing right now revenue generating? And if it's not, then I need to be home giving her cariño, love, and affection, giving her security. Because I think a lot of the reason why we have a lot of women that are insecure is because they were little girls that didn't have the love and affection and security that they needed. I mean, there's a lot of little girls growing up with abandonment issues and just a lot of that reflects in the workplace when women feel like they have to be validated or they have to feel more secure about something. And, I'm speaking from experience. I was that yes person or wanted to please people. And I realized it was like, wow, you know what, like, why don't I feel validated in what I'm doing? Why do I need, it's one thing to ask for feedback, but it's another thing to feel like you need to be validated. And so I'm very conscious of that. And it's very difficult for me to think about each task every day. Like, is what I'm doing going to be revenue generating for Casa Tirado, which is my household? Or, if it's not, then I need to be having an adventure day, having a play day where we go to the zoo, or we're gonna make, do a arts and craft thing. I figured out how to make homemade paint. It's so awesome. I use cornmeal and this like food coloring is so good. She's still at that phase where she puts everything in her mouth. So I'm like, how do we paint and it's okay? So we're like using paint that's okay for her to put in her mouth. And so it's like, all right, painting is good. Like, this is gonna make her feel good. Or like just hugging her and giving her that love. And so figuring out that balance has been taxing. Like, I think when I start to get a wrinkle, I'm gonna be like, oh, this is why. So yeah, that's my biggest challenge.
Yeah. That age where they stop putting stuff in their mouth doesn't go away. Like when I was married, I had 2 sons from his marriage, or I raised them for about 7 years. And one of them is about to be 16. I was still like, stop putting stuff in your mouth. Like, it's gross. I kind of agree. Well, sick days is crazy. With my last company that I was working with, there was an issue like within a couple of months. My daughters got sick. I caught the flu and strep throat at the same time. And the company at first was like, oh, this is great work-life balance. And if you need anything with your kids, and my daughter has asthma, like, we got you. And then they're like, oh, why didn't you come in? After I told them, like, hey, I have the flu and strep throat, and my daughters were sick. But that was another thing where it was like, you know what? I know this is how they want me to come in, and their policy is for us to come in. And my youngest has really bad asthma, so I would just come in. And I had my own mask. Like, you guys want me to come in? Okay, I'll come in, but I have a mask. But I think the hardest thing for me lately has been financially. With bootstrapping a startup, we're about a 5 or 6 person team. We're bootstrapping. We haven't gotten funded yet. And then also I was working in a position where they withheld a lot of the money, and I'm still kind of in the process of fighting for that. And then they withheld unemployment, and they let me go without cause. When I came to them saying, like, hey, we were supposed to come to this agreement. We came to this agreement. I didn't get paid. They're like, okay, well, there's not enough room for you here. So it's not just me I'm providing for, it's them. So I'm like sitting constantly, everything I think of as a loaf of bread. Like, this activity or this thing I'm doing will cost 6 loaves of bread. It will cost 20 loaves of bread. Okay, this gas is going to cost this much. And constantly having that running through my mind, especially when I was going through all of the issues, kept me up at night. So then I wasn't sleeping. So which then kind of rolls into what's going on with the kids. When everything's financially well, I can kind of figure stuff out. But when you don't know where that next check is coming in, I was so grateful. I have amazing family to help me out. I think that's been the hardest thing. And the cost of childcare. I mean, I pay $2,700 a month for them to go to school, and that's not including babysitters after if I have something else going on. So I have to think financially. Unless you're in that position out here in the Bay, that money is tough.
Well, I really appreciate you guys being so candid about the challenges that motherhood might entail, but I know we'll get to the fun stuff too, because I know there's joy in that as well.
Otherwise you wouldn't do it.
Yeah. But for those who are listening or who will listen afterwards, for those who are thinking about it, a good girlfriend of mine came to visit over the weekend, and we were talking about babies and family life and all of those sorts of things, and what that looks like. You get accustomed to a certain type of lifestyle, and it has to switch a little bit when you do add others into your world. But since we're talking about the workplace, what do you guys find so 2 things. Are there any companies that you think are doing it well in regards to working parents? And if you were to speak to a hiring manager or a boss, what would you tell them that they need to consider for working parents?
I don't
Thaisa roll their eyes.
I feel like As far as companies, I can't specifically name one because I know there's a few. It's not mine, but I know people are doing it where, you can bring your child to work. Like people bring their kids to work. There's daycares on the campus so that like while you're at work, you can go check on your kid. My son actually used to be in daycare at one of the state daycares. So you have to be a state employee for your kid to go there. So he wasn't far. So that was like a benefit for me. He has since switched daycares, but yeah, I think the companies that like really take that into consideration, I think are really doing something for people like overall. And if I were talking to a hiring manager, like I said, I'm a digital director and I can't work from home. It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm like, all I need is a computer and the internet. Like, there's no reason why I had to come to my office every day. And sit here and look at you guys and I'm online all day. Like I literally can go an entire day and not have to go to a meeting and not have to talk to anybody. I just have to be online all day to make sure the website's working, make sure our social media platforms are good. Like, so I really think that like, and I read an article that said millennials are actually responsible for that, like telecommuting being like more of a thing. So I really do think that companies should take that into consideration. Like I think it can help with people's morale, like to not have to come in an office every day. And they can spend time with their kids. Like if I worked from home even one day a week, like I would only take my son to daycare half the day, get all my work done, and then spend the rest of the day with him. Because like Nicole was saying, like sometimes I do struggle with that balance. Like, am I playing with him enough? Have I read him enough books? Like, did I give him enough hugs today? Should I kiss him again? And so if I had that option where I could spend half of my workday just grinding and doing work and then pick him up from daycare early and spend the rest of the day with him, like I wouldn't feel like on weekends I would have to be like Disney World. Like on weekends I'm literally like, how do I entertain him? It's literally how I spend my weekends every weekend. Like, should I turn into Moana this weekend and next weekend I'm a troll? Like that's my Saturday and Sunday.
Bringing the
Aw,
minions over this weekend.
that's
Bringing the
Okay,
it.
okay.
That's
minions.
it. Aw. Um, so I think the tech giants are doing a fabulous job with supporting women in the workplace. As much as I'm conflicted now with the She Leans In movement, via Sheryl Sandberg, when she initially launched it, I was in full support of it. I think that Facebook is doing a very great job. I had the pleasure of working for Rackspace for 5 years, which was another tech giant, not in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, but I think they're doing an excellent job. I've interviewed for Google on 2 occasions and gone to their campuses, and I think that they're doing an excellent job as well. I think that the ethos around these tech giants and kind of the mantra that they have is they understand that happy people produce. They understand that calm people produce. They understand that level-headed people produce. And I think that needs to be injected into the corporate America, and whoever Thaisa's boss is needs to get with it. And I think they need to take that away, is that when we feel good, when we're calm, when we're at ease, we can open up that creative mind, or open up that we're going to annihilate these task mind, and we just get it done. And so I think that, these corporates really need to understand that, you know, I always say this: President Barack Obama was probably one of the, in my opinion, greatest presidents of all time. I think that Michelle ran the country for 8 years, because there's no way that President Obama was going to be able to do what he was doing without an incredible, indomitable woman forcing him to be who he was. And so I think that these corporates need to understand that if women feel good about themselves, feel calm, feel relaxed, and feel like they can leave at 12 o'clock to go bring their kid lunch at daycare, that they can, because it's not about being task oriented, it's about being result oriented. And so, I've really had the pleasure of working for a phenomenal tech company for 5 years. And now, doing it on my own, I think that everyone that I work with, I'm very human with. I'm like, hey, listen, Phoenix, Mondays and Fridays, Phoenix is in school. I can have meetings all day long. I can do events. I can do whatever. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I schedule things during her nap time. For example, yesterday she was supposed to nap. She normally naps between 11 and 1. She woke up early. I had to call my engineer and say, listen, I need to reschedule. She's up early, you know, and I would hope that you would understand. Whether he feels like I'm wasting his time or not, this is my life story. If you want the excellence that is Nicole Tirado, then you're just going to have to work with me. And so, yeah, that I think there's much to be taken away from the tech companies, and I think there's a lot to be said about a woman that is calm and at ease and able to focus on what she needs to do.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was reading an article about Bill Gates, and he used to memorize the license plates outside of the parking lot to see who was coming and going. And he said he finally realized like that didn't dictate how productive people were. That just showed you who was in the office. And I'll be the first to say I've been in the office where I'm like staring at my screen, and I've been in the digital world. I mean, since college, and even in college, my classes were virtual. I went to UI. We would go into a classroom and sit and stare at the computer screen. Like it didn't make any sense. But to companies, I personally haven't worked for a company that had a great balance. But some of the companies I've been interviewing with, like Ultimate Software, they are just amazing. They give you a stipend for your kids to do extracurricular activities. It doesn't come out of your paycheck, anything. They want your kids to do more. Everybody gets this full healthcare coverage. They understand if you got to leave, you go. Like your family comes first, because if your family is good, then you're going to be good and you're going to want to keep working.
Yeah.
Paramount has this amazing, like they have the childcare on campus. Just a lot of companies have this a full understanding of if you're happy and if you're well and your family's well, you're going to do well. I think if I was talking to, well, I've actually had these conversations with my past company. Once you realize that the family is not separate from the person, your individual, if you expect your employee to come in and be like, okay, everybody else is at home, like I'm a separate person from everybody, then it creates a turmoil because you constantly have to make those decisions like, oh, do I come in today? Should I not bring them in? If people finally kind of had that click in their head, like when you hire somebody, you're hiring their whole, whether you realize it or not. You can try to force them to break it apart, but at the end of the day, something's going to fail. It's either going to be them at their job or their family life is going to struggle and could fail. And then that then brings problems to the workplace. So I think once people just kind of understand that, and then Arlen, she's one of the venture capitalists, she's kind of changing the name of the game, like with working mother. She understands if you're a working mother, you multitask better than dang near, or parent, working father, whatever. You are multitasking more than anybody else, because to be able to take care of yourself and your kids and your job or your pet or whatever, that's taking so much just on an everyday basis. That's not including any projects that you're working with. People kind of listen to that mentality. I think a lot of more companies would be more successful and people would be happier, for sure.
Yeah, you guys are definitely preaching that good gospel. I hope that some of the hiring managers will listen to this. And if you're in a position of influence and you don't have any children, but or maybe you're a man that might be listening in by phone, think about those things. Just because to create an inclusive environment, you have to think about each employee, and and it's important that you provide, like you said, like the old saying, happy life, happy wife, something like that. So
Yeah.
Happy life.
so you keep these ladies happy or these men happy. Give some good maternity leave, have the rooms for nursing mothers. Think about things outside of yourself. So I'm glad you guys mentioned some of those things. I want to ask this question now. So some of the women that are thinking about having a family, maybe they're like, oh, I don't know if I can be a mom and have a career. You guys are 3 women that are showing us that is possible. It's doable, right? It's not some farce. A lot of women are doing it. But what would you say that they could start to think about or consider in preparation for, whether they choose to do it by themselves or they do it with a partner? What advice would you have for the woman who's on the ledge? Like, I think I might, I'm not sure. I don't want to give up my life.
Well, first of all, you're gonna have to give up your life.
Yes.
Life will never be the same. So if you're not ready to do that, then you're not ready to have a kid. Because nothing will ever be the same. I remember when I was on maternity leave. So to answer your question, I think one of the things that people should get familiar with when they start thinking about having a kid, even men, is what does the maternity or paternity leave look like? Because I started my job in February, and shortly thereafter found out I was pregnant. So when it was time for me to go on maternity leave, like I hadn't been there for a full year yet, which is when like your FMLA kicks in. So I remember having a conversation with, like, at the time I worked for the Department of State, and so I had to have a conversation with the secretary of, like, the state secretary, and he was like, well, you don't have enough like time for like full maternity leave, like you get 6 weeks. And I was like, okay, but I'm taking 3 months. And he was like, yeah, but you only get paid for the 6 weeks. And I was like, no, I don't think you understand what I'm saying. I understand that, but I'm taking 3 months. Like, I'm not coming back here in 6 weeks. And I think that it was and so it was explained to me, like, we don't have to save your job. And I was like, okay, well, you find somebody that, you feel like you'll be comfortable, bringing in and firing somebody when they're on maternity leave. Like, nobody wants to do that. They've done it, but it didn't happen to me. But I think that that's one of the biggest things. Like, get familiar with like your company's maternity leave. Talk to other women that have taken maternity leave while working for that company. Get familiar with daycares. Like, where are they? How much do they cost? And just know that, like, a lot of women literally call the daycare before they tell their significant other they're pregnant. Like, people get on the list so quick, it's ridiculous. I put my son, the daycare that he's in now, I put him on the list when he was 7 months. They don't take you until you're 18 months. And they were like, yeah, you're a little late getting on the list. And I was like, are you kidding? He's 7 months. Like, somebody would have literally had to tell you at like 2 weeks pregnant that to like be ahead of me. Like, how is that even a thing? But I think that that's, you should get familiar with the daycares and figure out how much they are. Because like Delores said, I mean, daycare it's not cheap. It's ridiculous how much money people spend on daycare. And, I live in Pennsylvania, and I have friends that live in New York and friends that live in DC. And when they tell me about the prices for the daycares that their kids are going to, I'm like, I cannot even imagine. Like, I'm from Chicago, and if I still lived in Chicago, I don't know if I'd work, because those daycare prices in big cities, it's almost like I might as well just stay home. Just forget it.
Yes. Yeah, I totally agree. I pay 1,300 a month for Phoenix to go to school full time and 650 for her to go twice a week. So it's not a joke, but that sense of ease that I feel being able to go to work is priceless. But to answer Minda's question, so in terms of, you're thinking, you're teetering the line in terms of should I go back to work or not? The one thing I would think about is your mindset. Like, where's your head at? I, for one, had an unplanned pregnancy. I didn't plan to have Phoenix. I didn't think I was going to have Phoenix. I was still in denial when I had Phoenix. I think it wasn't until, they pulled her out of me that I realized, holy, I'm a mother now. Okay. So,
Just got
so
real.
yeah, it's got real. So I think that mindset has been the most important kind of thing for me to cultivate and foster to be stronger in terms of being able to work, because I don't have the mental capacity to think about more than one thing at a time. Like, I'm a big fan of single tasking. And so if I'm allocating the bandwidth to think about this project that I'm working on, that means that I'm not thinking about the things that I need to do for Phoenix. And I needed to figure out how to do both and do both well. Because I think that when we do multiple things at one time, we're only doing them at maybe 50 to 60% of how strong we would really be. So, like, I just think of myself as like an endurance athlete, and this is a marathon. And how can I train for this race every single day? So, mental capacity, like, can you go to work and still think about all the things that needs to be done in casa, wherever you live? And can you think about all the, if you're married, can you think about all of your husband's needs? Like, I'm not married, and so I don't have that extra responsibility, but I have the responsibility of thinking for Phoenix, thinking for me, thinking for the company, thinking for my body, thinking for my mind, and all of these things that are going on in my mind. And so when I go to work, I'm like, okay, I need to just think about this and like shelf everything else. So I think if you're a mom and you're thinking about going back to work, just think about your mental capacity and how you can like divide it up so that you're not going crazy and having like panic attacks and anxiety, because I had that for 10 months during my pregnancy. And yes, you can be pregnant for 10 months. People always like 10 months. I'm like, yes, I was pregnant for 42 and a half weeks. So I think, during those, yeah, it's crazy. She didn't want to come out. I was doing everything naturally. I did castor oil, enema, everything. She didn't want to come out. Anyway, so the whole point of the matter is mental capacity. Just think about like, can I allocate the bandwidth to everything that I need to do and still be the woman that I need to be for my husband, for my kids, for myself.
Yeah, that's huge. That's a long time to be pregnant. Oh my God. Um, so my situation was kind of weird. It was an unexpected pregnancy. When I first started working, I joined this great corporation and said, okay, I'm going to focus on my career. And I ended up meeting my then husband, and we got engaged in a couple of weeks. And I was always told I couldn't have kids, but I became a stepmom to two little boys. And about 3 months in, I was like, oh, I have all these migraines and I'm tired. And I thought work was just terrible. And I got to the doctor and they're like, oh, you're pregnant. And I was like, no way. Like, you're lying. A few months later, I was like, no, you're actually pregnant. So I didn't really have the chance to think about what I wanted to do. But kind of looking back, if I were to plan, like if I ever want to do this again, that childcare is huge, because it not only dictates, you don't want to send your kids anywhere. You have to be really comfortable, because that's who's taking care of your kids when they're not there. And before I moved to the Bay, I didn't look at the cost of babysitters. I knew the cost of childcare, but babysitters when you have two kids are about $35 to $45 an hour. That's a lot of money to pay anybody to do anything. So if you are looking, like you do want to look at something, I would say that's like one of the biggest things. And your network. I always thought that I could do everything on my own, but now I'm actually tempted to go back. I'm from Chicago, and I'm looking at moving back to Chicago because I'm like, I need my family's help sometimes. But then also don't let any of these things scare you. Like, if you want to being a mom it's not exclusive. It's not like, okay, well, do I become a mom or do I work on my career? You could do both. It's done. Things work out. If your company has a weird policy, it takes a person to speak up. My last company actually did change some of their policies, because it's like, look, I do amazing work. You guys hired me because I do amazing work, and I'm a mom, and my kids need me. So it's, like I said, it's a package deal. But don't let it discourage you. If your company has a bad maternity program, bring it up. And then if they don't accept it, it may not be the best place to be, because if that's something that your heart wants, that's not going to go away just because your company says, sorry, we only give you this amount of time. Like, I ended up leaving my company that I was working for when I got pregnant with my oldest. They let me go because I got really sick. And again, it was another wrongful thing. But I got really sick and was stuck in the hospital. And they're just like, you can't do your job if you're in the hospital, which is so wrong. You can't do that. But anyway, that's a long story. But yeah, don't let anything discourage you. If you want to get pregnant, go on and try it.
Yes, yes. I'm glad that you finished on that. I was thinking about, oh my God, $40 an hour. I'm like, wait a second, those aren't Babysitters Club prices, like where did that happen? That's a lot. I wasn't getting paid $40 an hour when I was babysitting back in the day, but a lot of good things to consider. The last thing I want to do before we open it up for questions, if you guys I know that some of our members who are listening by phone already sent me questions in advance, but if you're watching live, send questions, start typing them in the chat box. I think that it's safe to say you can ask anything here tonight. So if you have questions, make sure you get those in. But on a last question from me, ladies, what is the most fulfilling thing about being a mother?
Oh my God. I don't think I was ready for that. Like, I'm such a crybaby. I'm definitely going to cry. So for me, getting to this point was actually not easy. My husband and I started trying to have kids 1 year into our marriage. And I actually had 2 miscarriages before I got pregnant with my son. So by the time I got pregnant with my son, like I went into the whole situation like just like praying every second, like, am I okay? And like every little thing was just like I was trying to control my body. Like you can't do that. Like it's just not a thing you can do. Like you can't control a pregnancy. So like now that he's here, every little thing that he does is just like everything that he learns, and like I can see like the excitement in his eyes, and like just going through life with him now, I literally feel like the first 36 years of my life, like what was I doing? Like why did I wait so long? Like he is absolutely, and I love my husband, but my son is like, he's the absolute best thing that has ever happened to me. I cannot imagine life without him, which is why I've been like super emotional about like this Keep Families Together thing. Like I'm going to the march on Saturday in DC because I just cannot, literally have broken down in tears in front of the TV. Like I can't watch it anymore because just thinking about being separated from my son like that is heartbreaking. Like he's fun. Like my son is funny, and I'm sure everyone says their kid is funny, but my kid's really funny. And he doesn't even say like words yet. He just says like nana, which is banana, and like yes and no, and Cookie Monster and Elmo. Like, and he can put all those together, and I still know what he's saying. He wants grapes. I got it. Great.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, no, anybody that's like on the fence, like it is literally the best thing that I have ever done. Like it gives my life meaning. And even when I'm tired and exhausted and he's throwing food, like even in that moment, like I'm still thankful.
Oh, that's amazing. Don't make me get teary-eyed because I'm not a crier. So if I cry, it's like a big monumental thing. Um, but for me, I think about like Oprah and Ariana Huffington and all of these very influential women in the world. And they had a mother that shaped them and formed them. And that to me is like paramount. Like I want to be that mom. I know I didn't want to get pregnant. I didn't want to be pregnant. I was in denial about being pregnant. I was pissed off that I was pregnant. I was like, F the world. This is not my life. I have a career that, I'm trailblazing and I'm going to accomplish all of these things. And I felt like becoming pregnant was going to derail me. And I was pissed. And so, I wasn't excited about having a baby at all. And I think it's taken me a long time to admit that to the world and strangers and people on the internet of things. But I think that now I realize like, wow, this is not about me. This is about Phoenix. And that's part of the reason why I named her Phoenix, because I feel like she brought me back to life. And through the fire and the hell that I went through, I'm like, she is going to be this amazing, indomitable woman that is going to, I don't want to say she's going to change the world. Like, I'm not all about this, we're going to impact the world and change the world kind of thing. I think that she's just going to be a good person. And she's going to be a good person that other people can model after in a world that, we have issues like keeping families together. And so that to me is the greatest joy, knowing that I look at her and I'm like, damn, like every day I wake up, I have the opportunity to shape this little girl to do something in the world that's going to matter to a couple of people, maybe a couple 100,000, maybe 1,000, maybe 500, whatever. But I think that's the greatest joy to me, besides all the giggles. And, she's a drama queen now. She's 17 months. So, like, she throws tantrums and it's funny to me, but then I can't laugh because then she doesn't take me seriously because she's a spoiled brat. So, um, I think that she literally resurrected me from a very ugly place. And I think, that to me makes me feel like I owe it to her. And so I don't know if I answered your question, but in terms of like when I think about joy, I think about how she gives that to me. And how can I not give her my best? How can I not give that to her so she can go out into the world and do something wonderful?
That's huge. Um, I think about the most fulfilling, there's so many aspects to it. Like it is the hardest thing that I've ever done. But but I would say it's like the best reason to lose sleep. There's nights where you get like 2 or 3 hours of sleep, but then you see them and they're so happy. And you're like, you don't really remember you were just up, like kicking you through, like what's going on. But honestly, I would say the life lessons that I like, we teach them a lot, but we learn so much from our kids. Remember, it was my youngest daughter's birthday, and we had to go to court, and it was dark, and it was gray, and it was cold, and she got off the train, and I'm stressed dealing with stuff, and she's just like, it is such a beautiful day. And I was like, you're right. Like, I'm a crybaby. I wasn't a crybaby until like recently. But just all the things that we learned from them, and then realizing that we can have such a large impact on their lives. It's huge. And every time they learn something new, like to me, it's huge. I can call my parents and be like, oh, Zoe did this or Michelle did this. And thankfully they entertain it. But when I look back, I'm like, maybe that wasn't the biggest thing. But yeah, the most fulfilling thing is just you have these life partners and you realize how much of an influence you have on their lives, but you also realize that one day they're going to step out on their own. But how they step out is based off of how you raise them. I love it. It's like I said, it's one of the hardest things, but I got really lucky. My parents are really great. Just throughout everything that we've gone through, they've been really great. So I want to be that person for my kids as well.
Oh, all of this, I just loved hearing about it. I'm an old dinosaur and I chose not to have kids. And so I am just like, you guys had me second guessing.
Never too late.
I think it is, bro. I think it is. But without lots of help. But yeah, I think that's just beautiful. I love the idea of shaping little humans and how they show up in the world and exposing them at an early age to love, life, and the pursuit of happiness, even as children of color, right? Knowing themselves and seeing themselves in a world that we hope to make better for them than it was for us. So I commend you, working mamas. Keep doing it. Keep shaping those little humans. We need them in this world. For those who have questions, please start sending them in. I do have a couple that I'm gonna start here. So we'll try to get in a few before we get out of here. So if you ladies try to keep your answers short so we can get through as many as we possibly can. We have one question here that says, how do you balance friend time?
You're my friend.
Question.
Anybody?
Thaisa, you want to go?
Friend
Thaisa?
time. Yeah, so so I live in Pennsylvania. I'm from Chicago. I have a few friends in Pennsylvania, so when I see them, it's usually like my husband's actually in town and I'm like, can you just stay here with Anderson? I'm gonna like go get dinner with the girls, like, and that's what I do. Every once in a while I drive to DC and like hang out with my college friends or like my sorority sisters, just because sometimes I need to just like be me. But it doesn't happen often. Like I just don't have like a lot of friends where I live, so I don't really, that's not really probably a good question for me because there's nothing for me to balance because there aren't that many of them here. Like, so
No more friend time, Thais?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think for me, I've been having a lot of mommy play dates recently, and I actually just had one, and us mom, we all texted in the group chat. We're like, oh my God, it felt good to talk to adults. But it's hard for me though, and I find it really, really a challenge with this. It's a huge challenge that I'm struggling with because I have mommy friends that are stay-at-home moms, so they don't understand that I'm grinding and I'm working towards an end goal. And then I have entrepreneur friends, and they don't understand that I can't go to happy hour. And so it's just finding more people like Delores or like other, I hate the term mompreneur, but other like working mothers that are shaping their schedule. So if you're out there, you can tweet me or something. But I need more mom friends that just get me. Because my stay-at-home moms are awesome, but they don't get what I'm doing. And then my entrepreneur friends are great, but it's like I have to be two different people. So it's hard to have friends that just get me.
Yeah, that's huge. It's so I went from being a stay-at-home mom to then working full time and then doing the whole momtrepreneur thing. And it's funny, the women that I was really close with when I was staying at home. I mean, we got together every day. We bring wine to the pool, to the play dates. We always got together. But once I started working full time, they completely fell off. And now that I'm home again, I was like, hey guys, I had more time, and they're nowhere to be found. But that's just a small group of people. That's people I just met. For the most part, my friends curtailed when I realized that they weren't accepting of the fact that I had kids. If you can't understand the fact that there's going to be times where I have to cancel or that my kids are going to be around, I don't, like I said earlier, I don't live a separate life. Yeah, there are times I want to get together and I'll get a babysitter every once in a while, but it's not something I wouldn't necessarily call it balance at this point. It's just a part of life. Life changes, but if you aren't okay with it, then you're not really okay with me, which is then we can't really be friends. But I have a huge group of moms. I don't like that term either, but entrepreneurs. There's about 200 of us that have gotten together to support each other that either live overseas or live here. And even though most of it's virtual, we've become this great support system. And no matter what city we're in, we'll tell each other the resources or we'll just kind of talk each other through it and connect.
Nicole, sounds like you need to get plugged in there, huh?
Oh, right?
I will add you.
I am be down here alone.
Another question we had was, how do you, for the single mothers, and I guess it doesn't mean you don't have anyone, but for those who might be single, single moms, how do you date or how do you make room for that? Someone wants
Oh my days.
Are we
Delores,
passing
you
on
want to go
that, or
first?
you guys want?
Yeah. So I think for me, I was pregnant and single, and that was really hard because nobody wants to date a pregnant woman, and I didn't want to date because I felt dirty. I'm like, this just feels weird. But now I think I gave myself 6 months after Phoenix was born to try to start dating, and that was a massive fail because I wasn't ready. Like, I felt like if I'm hiring a babysitter or bringing her to my family's house to babysit, then it should be because I'm working out, I'm getting a facial, I'm working, I'm closing a deal, or I'm doing something. And so, I'm actually I actually ordered Tiffany's book, Drop the Ball, because I'm still dealing with that guilt of leaving Phoenix to indulge, leaving Phoenix to meet someone. And so, I am dating and it's difficult and it's hard and it's annoying with all these apps where you can just swipe. I feel like I'm traditional. Like, if you ask me for my IG or Twitter, I'm so turned off because I feel like you're not taking time to get to know me. And equally, if I go to meet you for dinner, it took time and precision to plan that. So I don't want you to just take me for face value what's on my Twitter or my IG. And so it's hard. I haven't figured it out. And I'm just hoping that, I meet someone organically when I'm doing my thing, because this is the Nicole Tirado train. And if you can't keep up, then get out the way. So
I think this also applies when you're married too. I mean, finding the time to, when I was married, finding the time to go on a date. It's when you have kids and you're working. Like their father didn't have a traditional work schedule. He was an athlete, but our dates entailed going to practices and we had games. And then we got really, really lucky if they won, because if they don't win, they don't speak. Because they don't want to talk to anybody. But if they won, then we could go out for dinner. But even not being in that relationship anymore, I think it's really important to find somebody that's in the same mindset and then also understands that you, again, I keep bringing this up, it's not just you. You're not just dating me. I have other things that are going on. I have my kids. There's a lot more things that you'll probably look for as well. But as of right now, I'm focused on the bags and finding a new job, and just honestly, it's all that time. I just want to kind of go and spend it with family. It's not a priority of mine by any means.
Yeah.
Right now.
No, that's good. I know I have a question here for Thaisa. The person says they're married too. So it's kind of a long question, so I'm gonna summarize it. You said I'm sorry, let me see. So you have a husband, you you take your son to childcare, you have responsibilities. How do you incorporate your husband in this, or do a lot of the responsibilities fall on you?
So I have somewhat of a unique situation. I am married, and my husband is very hands-on. He's a great father, and when he's here, he does everything that he can to help me. Um, but my husband travels a lot for work, so I literally sometimes kind of maneuver through my life like a single mother. He hates when I say that. And I don't mean like to throw shade at him or like wag a finger, but like sometimes I'm literally home by myself Monday through Friday with my son. So, and like he'll get home like late Friday night because he has clients in California. So sometimes like he's on the road for 4 days out of the week and then he flies home like on Friday. So, um, when he is in town, he takes my son to daycare. He gets him up in the morning. He gets him dressed. He, gives him his fruit because I joke my son's a fruitarian. Like he could live on fruit. So when my husband's in town, like he's very helpful. We do bath time together. We do bedtime together. But we had to get to that place because I had to explain to him, like, we had to find like a common ground. Like, he was tired from being on the road, which I totally understood. But I was tired because I was dealing with, going to work full time and being a mom full time and not having like somebody to just give him to. Like, can you just watch him for 5 minutes? Like, I gotta take a shower. Like, I just want to breathe. And so it took us a while to get there. Like, there were some battles. But we're good now. So I straddle the fence because I'm married, and so I have help and I have support. But when he's on the road, like if it's a busy season for him, it could happen week after week. Like he'll leave Monday morning, he'll get back Friday night, he's home on the weekend, and then that next Monday he's gone again, and then maybe that week he gets back on Thursday. Like, so I can't like plan around him. Like I can't put something on the calendar because he might have a meeting pop up. So our workaround has been on Wednesdays and Thursdays, I have a babysitter come for 2 hours just so when I get home from work, like if I want to go to the grocery store without my son, like I can do that. If I want to schedule appointments, like if I want to get my hair done, like those are my days, those are my hours that I have. Because otherwise I wouldn't really be able to do them because he's not here. And so like that's my self-care. Like if I have to give up something in order for somebody to come here and just watch my son for 2.5 hours, like she's here now. So like I can hear him running laps upstairs. but she's really good with him. So I think every situation is different. Some people's husbands do nothing and they don't travel. It's a conversation you have to find and what works best for you. And it doesn't happen immediately. I mean, newborns are really hard. Like it is what it is. You're gonna fight when you have a newborn because, especially if you're nursing, like some nights I just would look over at him and he was asleep and I was up pumping and I was like, just want to like punch him in the throat. And he's asleep. Like he didn't even do anything. He didn't even say anything, but I just want to punch him. Like, so. But it goes away. It does.
That's good to know. You guys, I appreciate just everything that you've poured into us tonight. Thank you for your candor, for your motherhood, for your awesomeness. Quickly, why don't each of you say where you can be found if you want to be found, so that people can connect with you?
Well, me personally, I'm on Twitter. I'm very active on Twitter. So my Twitter name is Thai Eileen. It's Thai, and Eileen is Eileen. I'm also on Instagram, but on Instagram, I'm Stats and Stilettos, which is like the brand that I started 3 years ago. That's mostly sports. So if you're into sports, then, come find me there. Yeah, that's probably the best places.
I love sports, so I'm gonna follow stats and stilettos. So I'm on Twitter, Nikki Tirado, NIKKI TIRADO. I started my Twitter when I was still with a tech company where it was cool to call me by my nickname, which is Nikki. So Nikki Tirado at Twitter, but I don't really go by Nikki anymore, which is very weird. And then on Instagram, I'm Nicole Tirado, NICOLE, but Tirado, so TEA, like tea, the stuff you drink, RADO. And I've gotten pretty active on Instagram. And I'm also, you can find me on my website. My whole story is there, is tirado.tech. And you'll mostly just hear about like raising my baby Phoenix. She's plant-based baby shenanigans and trying to feed her the best plant-based baby meals ever. And I go on diatribes about tea and how we should put ourselves first, because if we don't, then what are we good for? So that's what I'll be talking about.
I am Mode by Lo, MODE. I'm sorry, by Lo. Sorry. That I used to be Styled by Star. That was the kind of consulting company that moniker I was going by, and then switched to Mode by Lo. So it's like Styled by Lo. It used to be called D-Lo for years. I don't go by D-Lo anymore. But then also I'm on LinkedIn, and I actually work with a lot of other moms in the entrepreneurial space. It's kind of as a mentor. So if you have any questions, I'm pretty candid, as you can tell. If you just need an ear or you want some advice, I won't say I'm an expert, but it's something I really enjoy, being able to help people get through similar situations and show you can do a lot more than you probably are realizing at this point. But yeah, Instagram, or sorry, not Instagram, LinkedIn, it's with Delores Brown. Instagram and Twitter is Mode by Love.
Awesome. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for your time. Thank you for those who are listening in, who are watching live, who will watch us later on. It's been great. You can do it if you want to have babies. It's possible. You've heard it here tonight. You can still have a career and a life that doesn't have to go away. So if this is your first time at a Memo event, thank you so much for joining us. You could be anywhere in the world and you chose to be here tonight. So go to our website, myweeklymemo.com, and you can find out what's next. All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye. Ciao. Ciao, ciao.